So, all right, let's see if we can get through this. Hopefully it'll not flash up with that again, and then we won't have to cut ourselves short. So again, welcome everybody. Tuesday. Appreciate you guys stopping in for a lesson today on Pro Tools. We're going to do some mastering. I got my iLock here plugged in and ready to go. As I was saying before we got quickly cut off, we have a bunch of stuff coming up due this week. Of course, the math integration work due on Friday. We have our project due on Sunday, and that's because it's a time-sensitive project for podcasting. For the people that have handed in work, I kicked it back. If it didn't meet the criteria, it has to meet the criteria. Otherwise, we're just not going to do it. So if that requires you to re-record, then you got to re-record. If that requires you to edit again, then you're going to have to do that. Whatever it takes, you need to, basically fit yourself into the restrictions and the confines of the project itself. So make sure you read the directions on project number 11. Also, there are links to the website where the actual exact instructions are. My instructions are on the top sheet, but the instructions for how you're going to submit this as a contest entry are all on the website, and those links are there. If you look down in project number 11 really quick, here we go. There it is. So the actual links to these guys will give you the exact specifications on how we want that project. So please make sure you follow those links. And like I said, I was pretty clear yesterday. Here's some ideas. Here's the links to the website for the competition. And then, of course, when you're ready to submit, you're going to submit it here. So do yourself a favor and make sure you do that. All right. Also, like I said, anybody, and this is when we got cut off, anybody that has gym work, make sure you're doing that. Deja, you're in the class. I actually found your Q4 Chapter 2 Scantron in the class. I meant to tell you. I sent you an email as well, so please make sure everyone's reading their emails that are associated with this Google Classroom. So if you have a Gmail or a Hotmail or a Yahoo or whatever you're using to log into this, you're going to have to be sure to what just happened? The host has spawned. I don't know what that is. So anyway, yeah, just make sure you're doing your gym work. That's kind of where I was going with that. All right. And the gym book is here and all your information is there. So on and so forth, and whatnot. All right. I'm still just making sure that the internet is strong here. And it looks like it's a little slow, but it's working. So we're good. All right. So I'm going to shut the Instagram feed down. If for some reason we all get kicked out of this classroom today, just jump over to Instagram, WSB Audio Pro. WSB Audio Pro is the internet address. So make sure you do that. And yeah, this is hopefully going to stay stable and we don't have to do that. And then I can give you updates over there. So cool. All right, let's get this done. And let's start talking a little bit about what we discussed yesterday. And that was what mastering is. So we highlighted a few important points about mastering. Number one, mastering is not mixing. So you're not dealing with track by track mixing setup. You're dealing with more of a setup where you're dealing with stereo signals, right? You're dealing with a mixed down stereo track. And that mixed down stereo track is going to allow you to take that mix and then basically put it to the next level or put it to a level what is industry standard for what signals and sounds should be when they're released and put out on the intertubes. Wawa, Gab, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, that's one of those paper that says something about vector.com.
I can't hear you, Wawa. Hold on a second. 1 second. Hold on. Wawa, stop talking. Hold on. I have to change my output here. There you go. What's up?
Yeah, that's that's a paper like Solfix sent me a paper says something about the vector.com application. I'm not really sure what that is.
Yes, Wawa, you did get one of those. You want me to address that now, or should I just talk to the few people that actually got one of those?
Well, whenever it's possible.
All right, I'll address it now. So Wawa, Anthony, I think Eleanor, there was a few people, Ryan, there's a few people that are second year students. So they've been in the class for 2 years. And we were supposed to take what was called the technical endorsement exam, Wawa, if you recall. And we were going to take that on April 29th. Well, that day is coming past, obviously, or the 28th or something like that. And leading up into that test, we were going to sit down and do a review for it. And as a result, those people who met the qualifications, which is about really what keeps people out is attendance. But what has to do with is getting a technical endorsement exam seal on your diploma. So it's a sticker that goes on your diploma and it says you are technically endorsed. And a couple of requirements for that are taking and passing the test, passing my class, and getting a recommendation from me. So what happened as a result, and what we did, and what we met at the last, the last faculty meeting, is that we are going to allow the students that did not get the opportunity to take the test to take the test, to take the technical endorsement test. But if you read it carefully, Wawa, Anthony, Eleanor, Ryan, Zach, a bunch of people that are going to take it, they're offering it as an option to take it at home, but it will not count towards your technical endorsement. In fact, the technical endorsement now is going to solely rely on attendance. So if you met the attendance requirements and you've passed my class, you will get a technical endorsement sticker on your diploma. So congratulations, everybody. You didn't have to pass the test this year in order to get it. But we are offering the test for those of you who would like to take it. Now, if you pass it, it's something you can put on your resume. It's you'll get a certificate. You can print it out. It'll show that you pass an industry standard test given by Skills USA. It is an easy test, in my opinion, but since it's being delivered to you at home, it will really not count because you could technically cheat on it. I am not going to be doing any review for it because there is no bearing on your grade or your livelihood for it. There's only a very small window in which you can take it. So once you log in and go in and start taking it, you only have like an hour and a half. And you can take it whenever you want, but you can't stop taking it and come back to it a week later or a day later. Again, it's an option. It is not something you have to do. It's something that you might as well do. It's not going to hurt you. It can only help you. So you might as well try it and see what happens. That's my thought on that. And so that email went out to the students who qualified to take it, meaning they did 2 years, they met the attendance policy, and so on and so forth. So there it is, Wawa. If you have some time one day and you want to sit down and try the test, might as well, right? Might as well. Any other questions about the technical endorsement test? If you did not get an email, it's more than likely because you did not meet attendance requirements. So I think, Christian, you also got an email, if I'm not mistaken. So try to see who else is in the chat or in the participant thing here. I think that's about everybody. All right, cool. So let's do some mastering, shall we? Let me minimize this bad boy. And let's go. I don't know why my Zoom recordings are all there. Let's go into Pro Tools. And again, let's discuss very quickly the art of mastering. And as we saw in the videos yesterday and we discussed, we're taking it from the mix session. Welcome, everybody. Hi. We're taking it from the mix session into the mastering session. The mastering session, we're going to be pretty much working with mixed down stereo wave files. We're not going to be dealing with a mix session, meaning I'm not going to see the drums track by track. I'm not going to see the vocals track by track. I'm not going to be dealing with automation or any of the other stuff that you did during the mix session. This is strictly a mastering session. So what is mastering? It's taking something that was a good mix, a solid starting place, and bringing it up to industry standard levels. To do that, there are a couple of different ways. They actually do make hardware that allows you to run your signal through the hardware, and it will master it with some parameters and dials and buttons. Hardware meaning like a rack unit or some sort of external device. And then most of the things done today are done in a mastering session in a DAW or in a piece of software. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. We're going to actually try to grab an audio file that's been created and mixed, but not mastered. And we're going to go through the process using Pro Tools to make that particular audio file that much better, industry standard. I left that open, by the way. I was having Wi-Fi issues. So let's go in here and just start a new project. We're going to call it master. We're going to go ahead and throw it on the desktop. Our sample rate and bit rate will matter, because if we have audio files that are 44.1, 16-bit, and we try to bring them into a 48.24 environment, we might run into some issues. I believe that the audio files I have are 48.24 for mastering, but we'll see. I guess I use these as demo files every year, and we'll see if we can get something going here. So in my session, obviously when you open up Pro Tools, if you recall, nothing happens, basically no tracks, no nothing. So now I'm going to go in and grab my unmastered track, my mixed track, but not my mastered track. So I do have a bunch of these old projects here that we can use. And let's see what I got as that's a 44.1. I don't know if I like those. If there's any other ones like Pro Tools projects. Nope. Radio history. I don't have all of my drive information here. So I usually pull it from the hard drive from school. Don't know if I have all of that. So let's see if I have any of these. Well, these are some unmastered things. Let's hear what this is. Nope, that's not it. Should have pulled these off before, but I was planning on doing it while we were talking, and of course, the internet issues kind of threw me off a little bit. So let's see what we got here. I might have it buried in here somewhere, which would be pretty cool. GitHub Lime. No, that's not it. Certification. Nope, none of that. Go back into projects. Let's pull something. I don't know what these are. I don't really remember what a lot of this is. It's what happens when you do so many projects. There's things you label them and you still don't know what they are, because even though you label them, they were so long ago. Let me check out one thing here. I'm right here against my drive. I might actually have my school drive here that we can access. That would actually make things a little easier. I'll pull a copy off, and then we'll be able to, basically take a look at it and make sure that the files that we're working with today are going to be unmastered files. And really, that's my goal, right? I don't want to really pull anything in that's not unmastered. If I pull in a mastered file, I really don't want to do another mastering session with it. That would be rather foolish and kind of detrimental to, the whole process. You don't want to take mastered files and master them. That just seems silly. So I'm going to have a hard time here pulling all the wiring around. You might see my Pro Tools back out for a second because I just want to copy the file off. And yeah, I do have my school hard drive here, which is awesome. Thank God. See, good thing I got into school and did that. In addition to that, like I said, I was able to grab some parent logs and make some phone calls, get some real phone numbers, not just phone numbers that don't work anymore, or things that have not been verified as being actual parent phone numbers, which are actually literally some things that are at school. It seems crazy, but it is. And let's get into my drive here, and let's see what I can find on this drive. And yep, man, it's firing up. Hasn't been running its disk drive mode for quite some time here. And there she is. Look at that, the G drive. You guys are so familiar with that. All right, and now let's pull in. I might have more projects here. Pro Tools project. I do, and there we go. Let's pull in Frankenblazer, because Frankenblazer was a project that I worked on. And so here is the original mix file, and then here's the mastered file. So this is a great idea, and we're going to pull those in really quick to show you that. And then I'll also do this song, Run, which was also mastered by me. And there's the mix versions, and then here are the mastered versions. So let's get those into Pro Tools. And now that I have this on here, we'll drop the drive. I'll turn it off. I'll put my Pro Tools thing back in so we can actually use Pro Tools, because without the iLock, Pro Tools isn't going to work for me. There we go. Nice. All right, so let's look at both these files just on the surface, because that's going to be an important idea to see, physically see, how these files stack up against each other. Just taking a minute to load up all of the data. And I'll do that. And then DV mix has got to load up. Okay. So what we're looking at here are two files, same exact song. One is mastered and one is not. So let's just look at characteristics of waveforms really quick. Let's obviously look at the size of the waveforms. We'll put them in large here. And you could see right off the bat, oops, didn't mean to zoom in, but even zoomed in, this will just give you a better idea of how different these two files are, even though they're the exact same project. So the bottom one here is the mix version. This is the version that I got from the recording engineer. And then this is the mastered version after I was done with it. So let's take a look at, how different that is. You could see that here the dynamic range is not very large from the peak to the lower area. Over here, look at the peak to the lower area on this one. You could see an enormous change in waveforms. Again, same project, same exact project. Looking at it in terms of zooming out, you could see, right there that, this is much thicker and much more, we'll just say much louder than this one down here. But that doesn't mean it's all about volume, right? We also added maybe clarity. We added high end, maybe a little more low end. We did some things to this project here, this Run DV mix, to get it to this point. So let's go through that process. I'm going to delete no, I'm not going to delete that. I'm going to delete this track. So we'll do track delete. And I guess we'll delete that. And so we're going to work with the Run DV mix track. And one thing I'll have to do is obviously start a master track. And one of the what's my quick keys here? There we go. One of the things that you need to do with mastering is very obviously work on the master track. We're not going to be adding too many plugins to the initial track right here. I don't like doing that, especially when I'm working with only one track in this session. And the answer is, yeah, you actually might have more than one in that. There we go. Get my wide view. You might have more than one track in a session. You might be mastering an entire project, an entire album. So for me, it all depends on how you're going to master. If I'm mastering one track at a time, then I'm going to do one track at a time. If I want to then pull all of those master tracks into one project to see how they stack up against each other, see, that's when I'll probably end up maybe adding a little more EQ here or a final compressor there. Let's quickly take a listen to this project as best we can. Oh, wow. My mouse is acting really strange. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to crank this up a little bit. Let's see if we get some sound out of this puppy. Awesome. Awesome. Love it. So you can see right there that the VU meters, if we go back over to our mixer, is pretty much a decent mix volume, right? We're reaching somewhere around the -6, -7.5. Let's hear it, what happens when it kicks in. All right, now we said to you guys yesterday that Pro Tools and Logic differ a lot. We're going to see those differences as we go through here. So let's kind of dissect what we're listening to. We have a project. When everything kicked in, it's peaking around -4.4, which we know is good. It's between -6 and 0 on the way out. Our master is matching that. We haven't made any major changes to the sound at all. We have not changed the volume. We haven't changed pan. We haven't changed plugins at all. Let's do the first round here with just touching the master track. And I'm not going to, again, touch the fader. Never touch that master fader. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a series of plugins over here on the master track that will help kind of bring this this track to life. I'm very thrown off by the internet this morning. I'm gonna take my sunglasses off. No, way too bright. Way too bright. All right, so let's go into our multi-channel plugin. Let's start by throwing down a quick EQ, and we're going to do this just to have an front-end EQ, and we're actually going to put a back-end EQ on this, and I'll show you that in a little bit. I'm not going to touch anything. I'm just going to leave it there for now. And now, what would be our next natural step and evolution in adding plugins to a track? Whenever we add something to audio, we always say you add EQ and then compression, right? But in this case, the compression that we're going to use isn't going to be the compressor that we were used to back when we were doing mix sessions and tracks on the mix session. We're actually going to use a different kind of insert for mastering. Now, to do that, Pro Tools gives us a really great mastering-based plugin for this called Maxim. Maxim is our mastering-based plugin. So I'm going to go ahead and play this again while I'm talking, and we're going to look at a couple of things in the software here. We're going to look at the input side and the output side, and then we're going to look at these two things here called a threshold and a ceiling. Now, me personally, I never really want anything to jump over 0 dB at all in my master track, so I will technically kind of drop this down to probably negative 0.1, just to be sure. If I put it at 0, there is a possibility that something could throw out and peak and be a problem and cause distortion and all this other stuff. So I'm just going to play it on the safe side and just put it at negative 0.1. You know, negative 0.1 is a pretty good level. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and look at my little diagram here, this little visualizer, and it's going to show me how the track that I'm running through it is going to hold up. Yeah, it's a histogram, as you saw flash up there. So here. Okay, so you could see that this little histogram that was built kind of sideways, not up and down, really doesn't reach beyond negative 12. I mean, it has a little bit here. There'll obviously be a peak or two somewhere. So as we're playing it and we're watching this, this is going to determine kind of where I'm going to drop my threshold in relationship to my histogram. And hear what happens when vocals kick in here. All right, so nothing major has changed. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop our threshold, and while we're dropping our threshold, we're going to keep an eye on the output side and see how much this volume change will fix things. And you can see now major changes are happening between what's coming on the track and then what's going out to the output or the master track. Take a look at the master track right now as it is. Remember, without this being on or in and I'm suggesting a threshold, we basically have a negative 4 peak. Right, so negative 4. So now when I drop this to, what was it, negative 10 or so, watch the master track now. Yeah, and my buffer size is screwing up because I'm running a live video conferencing software, recording that live video conferencing software, and maybe I can get rid of Premiere and Spotify for now. Maybe that'll help slow things up, free things up rather. Okay, here we go. So look at how much volume was added into this mix, and it helped kind of jump things out a little bit. Now, because of that, there are some things now with EQ that I can hear better. It's not this very low, non-dynamic feel anymore. This isn't quite what we call a compressor, though it has very similar concepts as a compressor. It's more of a volume increaser, exciter kind of thing, which is all part of the dynamic range plugin family, let's say. So because I've now made this change and I hear things much differently, now I'm going to go in and go ahead and mess with some EQ. Maybe I'll do a little low-end boost. Maybe I'll do a little high-end cut because things got a little tinny. Again, I am listening out of my laptop speakers, so it's not quite as good of an environment to be monitoring and checking things out. But let's take a look and see, or let's take a listen and hear what changes can be made here in the EQ to eventually get to the Maxim. So that sounds good. Okay, it doesn't like me doing real-time moves. There we go. So what I just did as I'm listening is I'm looking to kind of add a little more thickness to the low end. So I came in and I tacked around like the 100 to 200 range with this little bit of a boost. And then I came and dropped a little bit of the high end because I feel like the cymbals and his vocals more specifically are now really bright. So I'm going to drop that brightness down just a little bit. Now, I've added volume. I've subtracted a little volume. Let's just make sure over now here in Maxim that we're still getting a decent output. I actually might be able to kind of increase this up to 11 now to get to that final 0 dB or close to that negative 0.1 dB area here in the master track. And you see, look at that. Now, if you also look, there's a third VU that also represents the amount of compression being put in based upon the Maxim plugin. And it's not, redlining. It's not going crazy. But at times when peaks come into the plugin, it is helping to reduce it just a little bit and hold it underneath that negative 0.1 ceiling. I don't want the volume of this to go over negative 0.1. I'm really maxing out the amount of signal. And basically what I did was I took a original track that had a decent volume. There's no doubt about it. But now I've taken it to that next level with a lot of added volume and a little bit of control in its total mix. So even though I added a lot of volume, stuff started popping out as a result. So then I was able to, add a little bit of low end to it, which was great, and subtract a little high end. And then I had to go back into Maxim and rebalance the equation to make sure I was still getting the result I was looking for. So from what I had here, it works out really well. Let's take a look at the parts here of Maxim again. We have our input side, which is really important. I'm going to mute this and play it back, but you can see my input side isn't kind of going beyond, let's say, 4 decibels or negative 4 decibels. And as a result, it's showing you a histogram of the loudest parts of the song. So that allows you then a visualization on where to drop the threshold in relation to that. That's what I do. I kind of just creep into the very start of the histogram. I always set my ceiling at negative 0.1 just to be sure that we don't have any peaks, nothing redlining, nothing distorted. Let's take a look at the release area. Obviously, you know that in a compressor, there is a parameter called release. How fast does the compressor let go? In mastering, you want a really fast release. You don't want to hold it and clamp it down on anything else that might happen after a certain peak. So I have that way low at 1 millisecond. You know what? Let me increase the buffer size because I'm getting tired of looking at that. Nope, wrong one. Sorry. I always do that. Go away, Zoom. Sorry, the Zoom menu comes up when I get close to it, so I got to make sure I stay above it. So our playback engine, and yeah, we're really low on samples here. So I'll jump it up to 1024. If you remember, the playback buffer size has a lot to do with how the system processes the audio. And if it's not enough buffer, then it'll come up with that error message. All right, anyway, so our release here is very, very low. And then we have this little section called dither, which I can turn on, and some noise shaping, 16, 18, 20. So what this is a result of the A to D conversion. As we remember, dither is the kind of random noise placed into a signal after the analog to digital conversion, or during the analog to digital conversion, rather. It's part of the process to smooth out the audio waveforms to make them sound, less squared off or less tinny or digital, right? So our noise shaping dither actually allows us to kind of contour what kind of signal is going to get dumped in. So right here, it says it's a bit resolution. So we know right now that I'm working in a 24-bit environment. So it says it determines the depth at which the bit in the dither and the truncation occurs. So what's truncation? It's cutting off the tops of the waveforms. It's basically part of what the ceiling is doing. It's just stopping it. So and then as a result, there's these areas that still need to get filled in by dither. So our noise shaping and our dither work hand in hand to get that final, smoothness. So when I do go back from our digital to analog conversion, or when I convert this out to a wave file, we actually have a nice smooth wave file that none of these parameters have changed the shape of the waveform while applying effects. So we have 16, 18, and 20. Oh, and here comes the internet again. Great. 16, 18, and 20. And these particular ones, have different sounds. It's hard to really hear the differences. It's actually easier to see the differences when you zoom all the way in and look at the analog signal as best you can. For instance, just to show you that concept, if I were to, wrong zoom. If I were to zoom all the way in, there are waveforms here that you can see. When I do my final bounce using the dither, using the Maxim plugin, the result will look different in 16, 18, or 20. And it's going to be such a slight difference. It's going to be almost, unnoticeable. But in some cases, for very high resolution.
What you doing?
I don't want to be muted. Sorry. Internet's again acting up, but I think we're still here. I believe everyone is still here, if I'm not mistaken here. Everyone, well, we're down to 15, so a couple of people probably jumped off thinking that we were done. We're not done, and the recording has not stopped, and I'll make sure that everything gets up on the YouTube channel if you missed anything. So like I was saying, the dither plugin, or part of the, there we go, Dacia's coming back. Part of the Maxim plugin is this dither concept where we can actually shape and change the final result of all of the signals. So 16, 18, 20 really has a lot to do with bit resolution and the amount of signal that goes in there. A lot of people swear by 16. I've done it with all of them, and I usually rest on 20 just because it's just more information. But I honestly, I've never really heard the difference. So I guess I've never really worked with any truly complicated high resolution sound. But I'm assuming if you jump up to 96 or 192 at 32-bit, sample rate, you might want to increase your noise shaping just so it doesn't take away from the final result. So again, we added an EQ at the start of the signal chain just to be able to control a little bit of the low and high end. We initially left it flat. We added the Maxim plugin and then did our move to get that final volume. And then we had to go backwards to the EQ to kind of make up some of the changes that could have occurred while we increased volume. And as a result, we got a really good signal in that master chain. We went from a -4 now to a very consistent -1 or -1.1 or whatever it is. I muted it, so here we go. So that's without it. And here's with the signal. I mean, that's a major change in volume and in quality of mainstream music, relationship. That is part of why I love Pro Tools. It comes with this Maxim plugin, which really quickly can change the level of your mastering. And it's not done. I'm not done here by any means, but I definitely am on my way to getting a really great track. So let's pause there for a moment and let's go a different route. So I'm going to actually dump these out of here for just a moment. And again, going back to signal, we're back down to having a very simple -4, -4.4, negative whatever signal. So it's not as loud as it is anymore. Instead of using what Pro Tools came with, I want to show you, and I mentioned really quick, a third-party plugin, and we watched the video yesterday from them, from Isotope. Isotope has this really cool plugin called Ozone 8. Ozone 8 is probably the bare minimum right now of the versions. I think a lot of the softwares have been updated in the last few years. So we bought into Ozone 8, which is a mastering suite. So this is how this works. A mastering suite is composed of many different plugins. A lot of the types of plugins that you would see on a mastering chain or on a master track in the inserts. So you can see here, equalizer. This is the default setting, by the way. The equalizer is first, just like we had before. Then there's a dynamic change, which is very similar to a multipressor. So there's a couple of different bands of frequencies in which you could compress. So there is, 140 and below, 140 to 2K, 2K to 10K, 10K and above. So it's a multipressor. We did discuss that in Logic being something that we will use on the mastering chain. Then we have a maximizer. So this is kind of what Maxim is. Maxim is a maximizer. And of course, you're going to see some of the same ideas here where you have a threshold and a ceiling. So as you know, I will bring down the ceiling to negative 0.1, and then I will use the threshold to drop it down. We know it worked very well at around negative 10, so we can adjust that later. So it starts with an EQ, then it comes in with a multipressor, then it comes in with a maximizer. And you don't have to use all of these. For instance, if you want to set up a very similar signal chain that we did before, I would dump the multipressor. Not that I wouldn't want to use it. It's just in this case, if I want to mimic what I just did previously, what I just did previously is I had an EQ and then I had a maximizer, and that's all I used. Let's hear it with it. Hopefully it'll play. Or not. There we go. And the good thing about this one is it actually has a visualizer as well. So you can kind of see where everything kind of lives. My low end, my mids, my mid highs, and my high end, right? So what I did before is I dropped out the high end a little bit around the 100 to 200 range, which I actually can go back to right here and just push that up a little bit. Well, although it does kind of roll up. So let's put band number 2 into play so we don't have that idea. And then we'll push this up a little bit. There we go. So that's kind of what I did before in my EQ. And now if I look at my maximizer, you can see that it's really not, pushing the way I want it to push. So I'll, again, put the ceiling at -1, and then I'll drop this bad boy somewhere around that 10 mark, right? So you can see now that there is a pushback here. Let's take a look at what's going on over in the master track. So again, here is our initial signal at -4 at max. And now here is our mastered signal at -1, right? So this is the kind of stuff that you're looking to do. You're looking to get the most out of your signal. And again, I could go A and B it for you really quick. I'll show you. I'm going to let you hear it with it and without it. So that's without it. And then we add the next level. Without it. And here's with it. And of course, I'm also now getting So again, just what I'm trying to do is, as I'm listening to it, as I increase volume and I get a sense of kind of what it's like, then I'm going backwards into the EQ and just kind of reshaping things, because as you increase volume, you allow things to kind of speak a little louder, certain areas of the frequency ranges to be a little louder. The other great thing about Ozone, just to give you this heads up, is it has a ton of presets. And I don't know which ones I have here. Let's see if I have a mastering assistant. So here's a really cool thing. So this software actually will allow you to kind of target what type of mastering you should do. All right. What are we looking for? What are we going for? Are we going to go streaming? Are we going to go CD? Or we're going to use this as a reference track to do everything else beyond? So let's go into streaming, because that's most of where everyone's going to end up. I'll hit next. I'm waiting to hear your audio. So there we go. Now I'm going to play the audio, and it's actually going to go in and analyze that audio and make recommendations adjust the dynamic range, set EQ, bypassing dynamics if there's no extreme range detected. The maximizer threshold will be set to the best target to hit the most loudness, analyzing that, and then, of course, sending dynamic EQ to improve maximizer transparency. So there we go. I'm going to accept all that. So let's see here what the result is the result is we're going to shut you down. How about that? You are awesome. You are awesome. My computer's having so many problems today. Never had these problems before. Crazy. And I actually did this. This is how I did the initial project. So I'm not quite sure why it's having such hard times figuring this all out. I thought I saved this. Yeah, there it is. It's right here. Let's go in here and take the most recent backup, which should be this one, which happened at 10:47. So we didn't lose too much time here. 5 minutes, maybe. Love the way they do session file backups, right? Something shuts down on you, you can always go back in and go back to your original settings. So we only kind of lost a minute or so. I'm not going to click on this master assistant again because I might end up crashing it again. And why am I crashing? It's not because it can't handle it, not because the computer's bad. Like I said, because I'm actually video streaming and recording everything at the same time. So there's a lot of processor being put and devoted towards the Zoom stuff. So that's why I'm having such troubles with my Pro Tools, because Pro Tools usually should be running with nothing else going on in the background. So that master assistant, as you saw, would analyze the audio, listen to it, make recommendations, and then you can apply those recommendations. So they'd add things like EQ, a maximizer, maybe some dynamic processing, and other things that would go in here. This is interesting that you could add your own plugin. Again, this is a mastering suite. So one of the things I also do for a mastering suite is look at the stereo field. Part of mastering isn't just about volume and EQ, but it's also about, how good the stereo field is from left to right, whether it's balanced or unbalanced. There's a spectral shaper in here, which is very fun to use. So let's take a look at the imager to start, and there it is. So when I push play, you could see that this is pretty good. It's really covering a very wide range of the stereo field, which is awesome, which means the mixing engineer did their job in how to get things spread out left and right. And this is just a visualizer. You can't really make much change to anything here. You can't pan or move or do anything like that. What else let's do the spectral shaper. That's fun to look at too. And, basically what we're doing is looking at different ranges of frequencies. And you do have the ability to make a little bit of a change to things because of that. So again, if I pull down the threshold a little bit to -0.1, and I really want to change things here by adding some tonal shape and really kind of spice up this one little range, that's a fun one to use. And I know it's hard to hear, so we actually can have it listen to it really quick and then apply some signal to it, which is fun. Another way of looking at your waveforms here, it's a constant ticker that goes by and shows you all the waveforms of the signal that you're listening to. So by using this plugin suite, as we call it, we're able to add multiple plugins, but only taking up one single insert. So instead of building this particular lineup insert by insert here, we're actually using one piece of software to do it all. And like I said, the presets are really good in this, and the assistant is actually really good at giving you a direction. It'll listen, it'll make adjustments, it'll make recommendations, and then you can go back in and change the things you were looking to do. So some people, I guess, were having trouble rejoining the classroom. There's nothing through Pro Tools where the presets are going to be, and a lot of the presets that you can use, actually, iZotope can supply to you. They constantly update their preset list. They can let you download it from their server. So if you're looking for like a very specific mastering setup or chain in this part, let's say you want some jazz music or some really obscure K-pop music, right? And you want a mastering chain for that particular type of music, iZotope might be able to get that for you. If you go onto their website and search some of their preset libraries, you would be able to download it, load it into Ozone, and it would already have a producer who spent time working on it, set it all up for you. It kind of reduces the amount of time it would take for, especially for people that don't know how to really work with this and don't want to spend the time working with this, a very easy shortcut to get to that final point, or at least, you know, a direction to head in, because you might not have a clue which way you want to go with it. So like I said, you know, these uh, software suites really do allow the signal to kind of move forward and change from being a mix session volume to a mastering session volume. Again, look at the change in the volume from the initial track, which is right here, that initial mix track, to the final track, which ends up being really good. And I don't want to stress it anymore, but to look at these two tracks side by side, what the hell? To look at these tracks between the mastering and the mix, you're going to see major differences in how that volume visually looks. So I'll lessen the thing, and you could see after a mastering session, you know, this track really took on a brand new life. We'll go to large for all, and then we'll move this over. So again, this was the mixing version up here. And then once we applied those settings that I was just talking about, the EQ, the dynamics, the maximizer, or the Maxim plugin, or the Ozone suite, I got to this level right here. And this is where you want to be, because if I were to mute this, and again, no plugins in the chain, just listening to the track at the master, take a look at, you know, how great the volume is here compared to how the volume is here, right? It's like really weak here. You're really not getting a lot out of it. -7 at this point before it kicks in. Over here on this track, I'm getting that final result. I think I set this one at negative. No, I set it at 0 because I knew enough about the project during the mixing section that I could actually get a good result. So I want to just now highlight, now that we're here and understand how to get to this point, I want to talk a little bit about that difference that we mentioned before. So let's go into the preferences of Pro Tools and go over to metering. Now, Logic has this as well. So we are metering in something called digital VU, all right? And here are all the potential ways that you can meter, basically changing the way your VU meter looks. I can actually look at it in analog VU meter, which is interesting. Pro Tools comes in with a default of digital VU. And because of that, as a result, our digital VU meter peaks are going to be at 0. All right, so you see it right here. 0 is the peak. Let's go back into there and let's make a change. And let's go to VU and then hit OK. And now let's take a look at this. And so, yes, we still have 0, but you'll notice that it's not quite exactly the same range. Remember, this was all the way up here in the orange before, and now it's not, doesn't even look like it's reaching that 0 mark anymore, right? It's -1.5 or so. So it's a little different now because we've changed the way we're metering. Basically, we're just changing the view. That's how I want to say. We're not actually changing audio here. No, we're not going in and changing the way the audio is acting. We're just changing the way the software is listening and showing. So it's kind of a visual change. And there's a lot of different kinds. The Pro Tools Classic I've used before because I grew up on Pro Tools, and it's a little different in how it's going to show. So now you see we're already peaking at -7. So the algorithm's already a little different. If we go into and change it out and swap it out to let's say the linear one, that's interesting. Yeah, see, it's now it's a little different, although the peak came up and now we're back up to -1. It's just different from VU meter to VU meter when we're looking at these changes. So going back really quick to, you know, digital VU, I always try to keep it here in the digital VU because I'm very used to it. We can actually go ahead and have the track and master be the same. So if you look at this right now, the track meters are in digital VU, but my master meters in Pro Tools Classic. Like I said, I like Pro Tools Classic because I grew up on it. I knew it. And I knew how to handle and basically take the information in and know what my result is going to be. And that took a while. That took a while of mastering on and off to finally understand what's coming in is what's going out is what I want. And again, feel free to change these. I mean, you just better know what you're looking at, and you better know what the result's going to be when you do change it. So I leave it in the this world. I do. I like it this way. I was always kind of taught this way, but logic works very different. Logic works very different. So this is why I wanted to just show you this today as we cross over into logic in the next 2 days and do some mastering there. I'm going to go back and again make connections to what these meters are doing. Digital VU, Pro Tools Classic, and then of course what logic is all about. So again, just to wrap up, a few things that you can do for mastering in Pro Tools. It's simply using an EQ and then using the Maxim plugin. And then you can add more stuff beyond that, but I recommend just staying there for now because you can really get a great result if you know how to manipulate that Maxim plugin. We also looked at a plugin suite, a third-party plugin suite, something you have to buy separately, where you can use many different plugins in one plugin. And a lot of those types of third-party suites have some really great tools and presets that you can use to kind of mix and figure out exactly where you want to go in the direction you're headed for your mastering session. Again, the overall concept of mastering is getting it from this mix session, volume level, dynamic level, industry kind of level place to where it should be before distribution, before burning, before doing anything else with it. And as a result, things are going to change. So you do have to look at what happens during your bounce, which we'll talk about tomorrow, because there are certain things that come up when bouncing during mastering that you really are going to have to pay attention to. We'll cover that tomorrow. And of course, then how that works in other softwares, because we can apply a lot of the same stuff we were talking about today to other softwares like Logic, like Presonus One, like Audition, like anything. It's just simply understanding the chain of signaling, EQ, then some sort of dynamic processing to get it from level 1 to level 2 and into the audio industry. All right. I'm going to have this video up on YouTube in about a half an hour to 40 minutes. I know we cut out a few times, and I know things went a little awry. So I'm going to get as much of this up there as possible. I might have to do some editing depending on what happens. So I'll take a look at that later. Just if you missed anything, if you got dropped out of the class or your internet connection wasn't as good as mine was, which wasn't that great today, then you can go back in and watch those videos over on the YouTube page. Do yourself a favor yet again. Make sure you're checking in with the class stream. Make sure you're getting your classwork done. Go back through all of these projects. If you haven't taken a quiz, you haven't completed a project, hand it in ASAP. Project 11 is due on Sunday. There will be a quiz this Friday, and it will be on mastering. So you'll have to either have notes or you'll have to go back and watch the videos and have them in front of you. Make sure that you're using all the resources necessary. Also, don't forget about math and science integration. You can see those will count as notebook checks. 20% of your grade is going to be based upon all these guys. 30% of your grade is based upon the quizzes that you guys are doing. And of course, 50% of your grade is going to be based upon the projects that you're doing. So just make sure you're going back through the classwork page and complete every single thing that's here. Because like I said, we have our administrators, we have our guidance counselors now part of my classroom. We have been sending information back to the schools, back to your home schools, and eventually it'll trickle down to you. So as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, everything will be fine. If you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, I can't account and I can't help you. There's only so much I can do. My mission was to just get as much information to you over these next few weeks before we go to some weird summer break. And then hopefully first year students that are coming back for second year will have a good background or at least a stable structure foundation of logic. And then when they finally get into class and are able to apply some of the stuff that we learned this year to next year, it won't be as hard. And usually logic isn't. So it actually happened in a really good place. Pro Tools is much more difficult, and everyone got an equal chance at getting a good Pro Tools background. All right. So no one has any questions. We will hang out.
Yeah,
I will hang out in the Google Classroom for a while and making sure everyone is working. And of course, if you have any questions, you can email me. I will be here back again tomorrow at 10 a.m. for more Pro Tools and Logic mastering. Everyone have a great day and get some work done. Holla, holla, holla.